What happens when a beloved Hollywood icon walks onto a daytime talk show stage and refuses to play along? The lights rise slowly, warm and golden, casting that familiar glow over the set. The chatter of the audience hums like electricity in the air. Anticipation, excitement, curiosity. It's just another morning on The View. Or at least, that's what everyone thinks. Until Anne Hathaway walks out. She's poised, elegant, dressed in a sleek, understated outfit that somehow commands attention without asking for it. Her smile is practiced, graceful, composed. But there's something else beneath it. Something sharper. Something watchful. The applause swells, louder than usual. People adore her. She's been the princess, the powerhouse, the Oscar winner, the quiet force in an industry that rarely allows quiet. But today, something feels different. She waves, sits down, crosses her legs with effortless confidence. The hosts greet her warmly, laughs, compliments, the usual rhythm. Everything seems normal. But tension has a way of hiding in plain sight. And then it begins. Before we go any further, if you love intense celebrity moments like this, hit that subscribe button for Stage View right now, drop a like, and let me know in the comments. Whose side are you on before this even starts? Because trust me, by the end of this, you might change your mind. The conversation starts light. Her latest film. Her transformation for the role. The emotional depth. She speaks with calm clarity, her voice soft but deliberate. The audience leans in. She's captivating in that way. Never loud, never desperate for attention, yet impossible to ignore. The hosts nod along. Smiles. Agreement. But then Joy Behar leans forward. There's a shift, subtle, almost invisible, but unmistakable. Joy tilts her head slightly, her expression curious, but edged with something sharper. She's done this before. Pushed. Prodded. Turned polite interviews into something more. Well, she begins, her tone light but pointed. You've always had this reputation, Anne. The audience quiets. Anne's smile doesn't disappear, but it changes. Just a fraction. Joy continues. People say you're, how do I put this, a little too perfect? A little too rehearsed. Like everything is calculated. A few scattered chuckles ripple through the crowd. Nervous laughter. And lets the silence sit. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't react immediately. And that's what makes it powerful. Joy presses on. I mean, you've heard it, right? That sometimes it feels like we're watching a performance, even when you're just being yourself. The words hang in the air like a challenge. The other hosts shift in their seats. One glances at and another at Joy. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. This wasn't supposed to go here. And inhales slowly. For a moment, it looks like she might laugh it off. Deflect. Pivot back to something safe. That's what people expect. That's what she's always done. But not today. She leans forward slightly, her posture changing. Not defensive, but grounded. Intentional. Her eyes meet Joy's. Direct. Steady. And when she speaks, her voice is calm. But there's steel underneath. That's interesting, she says softly. Because I've always wondered why confidence in women is so often labeled as calculation. The audience reacts instantly, some applause, some murmurs. Joy blinks, just briefly. It's subtle, but it's there. She didn't expect that. And continues, her tone measured but unmistakably firm. You say rehearsed. I hear prepared. You say perfect. I hear professional. The room tightens. Joy leans back slightly, crossing her arms. Not defensive yet, but alert. Oh, come on, she says, half smiling. You can't tell me you don't understand what people mean. And nods. I understand exactly what people mean. A pause. And I also understand why they say it. The audience goes quiet again. Anne's gaze doesn't waver. There's a certain discomfort people have when a woman doesn't apologize for being composed. When she doesn't stumble. When she doesn't shrink herself to seem more relatable. A few louder claps now. Someone in the audience says, yes, under their breath. Joy's smile tightens just a bit. Well, some might say it's about authenticity, she counters. People like to feel like they're seeing the real person, not a polished version. And tilts her head slightly, considering. And what makes you think this isn't the real me? The question lands like a stone dropped into still water. Ripples. Joy opens her mouth, then pauses. And leans back now, but her presence fills the space even more. I've spent years being told to be less. Less articulate, less prepared, less put together. Because somehow that makes people more comfortable. Her voice softens, but the intensity doesn't fade. But I'm not here to make people comfortable. The audience erupts into applause. Not polite applause. Real applause. The kind that builds, grows, spreads. Joy lets it pass, tapping her fingers lightly on the table. When the noise settles, she leans in again, her tone sharper now. But isn't part of being a public figure accepting criticism? I mean, you've had your share of backlash over the years. There it is. The shift from subtle to direct. And nods slowly. Of course. And some of that backlash, Joy continues, comes from people feeling like they can't connect with you, that you come across as distant. Anne's lips press together for a moment. Not in anger, in restraint. And you think calling that out on live television helps bridge that connection? She asks quietly. A ripple of reaction moves through the audience. Joy shrugs. I think it's an honest conversation. And nods again. I agree. Honesty is important. She pauses, then adds, but so is intention. The words hang heavier this time. Joy's expression shifts, just a flicker, and continues, her voice steady but unmistakably more intense now. There's a difference between asking a question and framing someone in a way that invites a specific answer. The room is silent. You can feel it. That moment where everything slows down, where every word matters. Joy leans forward again, her tone now more defensive than curious. Are you saying I'm not being fair? And meets her gaze without hesitation. I'm saying that sometimes the way we talk about women, especially women in this industry, says more about us than it does about them. A collective inhale from the audience. Even the other hosts are still now, watching, waiting. Joy's jaw tightens slightly. Well, she says, this isn't about women in general. This is about you. And nods. Exactly. And then, just for a moment, her composure cracks. Not in anger. In truth. You're talking about me like I'm an idea. Like I'm a perception. Like I'm something to be analyzed. Her voice deepens, emotion threading through it now. But I'm a person. The words land harder than anything she's said so far. And I've worked really hard to be taken seriously. To be respected. To be enough without having to be less. The audience is completely silent. No claps. No murmurs. Just stillness. Joy looks at her. Really looks at her. For the first time since the exchange began. And something shifts. But it's not over. Not even close. Because what happens next is where everything changes. The silence doesn't break all at once. It lingers, stretches, settles into every corner of the studio like a held breath no one is ready to release. Anne Hathaway sits still, her hands folded lightly in her lap now. But the energy around her has changed completely. She's no longer just a guest promoting a film. She's the center of something far more volatile. Something unpredictable. And across from her, Joy Behar watches carefully. Not smiling anymore. Not leaning back. Studying. The audience shifts in their seats, sensing it, that invisible line that's just been crossed. The kind that can't be uncrossed, no matter how hard anyone tries to steer things back to safety. Joy inhales, then exhales slowly, her fingers tapping once against the table. Okay, she says, her tone measured but carrying a sharper edge now. Let's not make this into something it isn't. A few audience members glance at each other. That sentence alone feels like a spark near dry wood. And doesn't interrupt. Joy continues. No one's denying you're talented. You've had an incredible career. But part of being in the public eye is how people perceive you. And whether you like it or not, that perception exists. And nods slightly, as if she's heard this 1,000 times before. Of course it does, she replies calmly. Then why does it bother you so much? Joy presses, leaning forward again. Why not just accept it and move on? There's a faint murmur in the audience, some agreeing, others clearly uneasy. Anne's gaze lowers for just a second. And when she looks back up, something has shifted again. This time, it's not just controlled. It's personal. Because, she says quietly, accepting something doesn't mean it's right. The words are simple, but they hit with weight. Joy tilts her head. So now it's wrong for people to have opinions? And exhales through her nose, a flicker of disbelief crossing her face. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, but real. No, she says, shaking her head slightly. It's not wrong for people to have opinions. She leans forward just a fraction. It's worth questioning where those opinions come from. The audience reacts again, soft claps, a few louder voices murmuring agreement. Joy's lips press into a thin line. And where do you think they come from? She asks, her voice now unmistakably challenging. And doesn't hesitate. From years of conditioning. A ripple moves through the room. and continues, her voice gaining strength, not louder, but clearer. From being told what a woman should look like when she speaks, how she should sound, how much confidence is acceptable before it becomes threatening. Joy raises an eyebrow. Threatening? Really? Yes, and answers, meeting her gaze without flinching. Threatening. The word lands heavier than expected. Because when a woman is self-assured, and goes on, when she knows who she is and doesn't dilute herself to fit a narrative, it unsettles people. The audience is listening closely now. No distractions. No shifting. Just focus. Joy leans back slightly, folding her arms again, but this time it feels less like control and more like defense. Or, Joy counters, maybe people just don't like feeling like they're being talked down to. There's a subtle reaction to that, some nods in the audience, and catches it. And instead of pushing harder, she softens, just enough to change the rhythm. That's fair, she says gently. The shift catches everyone off guard. Even Joy. And continues, no one likes feeling that way. She pauses, letting that acknowledgement settle. But there's a difference between someone projecting superiority and someone simply refusing to shrink. The room goes quiet again. Joy studies her, eyes narrowing slightly. You keep using that word, she says. Shrink. Who's asking you to shrink? Anne's expression changes, not defensive, not angry, but deeply, quietly certain. No one asks directly, she says. That's the point. A beat. It's implied. The tension tightens again. In the comments, and continues. In the headlines. In conversations like this one. That lands. You can feel it. Joy's posture stiffens. Oh, so now this conversation is part of the problem? She says, her tone sharper, less controlled. And doesn't raise her voice. Doesn't match the edge. But her words cut deeper because of it. I think this conversation could be part of the solution, she says. The audience reacts, some applause, some surprised murmurs. Joy lets out a short laugh, but there's no humor in it. By calling me out on live TV? She asks, and tilts her head slightly. I'm not calling you out, she replies. A pause. I'm responding. That word, responding, hangs in the air like a quiet correction. Joy shakes her head, a faint smile returning, but it's tighter now, less relaxed. Well, it feels a little like you came prepared for this, she says. Like you were waiting for someone to bring it up, so you could make a statement. There's a shift in the audience, curiosity mixing with tension. Anne's lips curve into the smallest hint of a smile. Not mocking. Not dismissive. Knowing. Maybe I was, she says. That answer lands like a spark. Joy blinks, clearly not expecting that level of honesty. And continues, her tone steady, almost reflective now. Because this isn't new, she says. This conversation has been happening around me for years. She gestures lightly with one hand, as if referencing something invisible but ever present. Different words. Different headlines. Same idea. Joy leans in again, sensing an opening. So this is about your reputation, she says. About how people see you. And nods. It's about more than that. A pause. It's about how quickly we reduce people to a single narrative. The audience murmurs again. Anne's voice softens, but the emotion beneath it is unmistakable now. I've been called too much and not enough in the same breath, she says. Too polished. Too intense. Too serious. Not relatable enough. She lets out a quiet breath. And at some point, you realize it's not about you. Joy tilts her head again. Then what is it about? And meets her gaze. It's about expectation. The word lands with weight. And what happens when you don't meet it? The silence that follows is different this time. Heavier. More reflective. Even Joy doesn't jump in immediately. For a moment, it feels like the conversation might finally settle into something calmer. Something more balanced. But tension like this doesn't disappear. It evolves. Joy leans forward once more, her voice quieter now, but sharper in a different way. Let me ask you something, she says, and nods. Joy's eyes lock onto hers. Do you think you're misunderstood? Or do you think people are seeing something you don't want to admit? The question cuts deeper than anything so far. A few audible gasps from the audience. Even the other hosts shift uncomfortably. And doesn't answer right away. For the first time since this started, she hesitates. Not out of fear, but because this one matters. Her fingers tighten slightly in her lap. Her gaze lowers for just a moment. And when she looks back up, there's something new in her eyes. Not just composure. Not just control. But vulnerability. And something else. Resolve. The kind that changes everything. Maybe, she says slowly, it's both. The answer catches everyone off guard. Joy's expression flickers, surprise, curiosity, maybe even a hint of respect. And continues, her voice softer now, but more powerful than ever. I'm not perfect, she says. I've had moments where I've overthought things, where I've tried too hard, where I've been guarded. A pause. But I've also grown. The audience listens closely, completely drawn in. And growth doesn't always look comfortable, and adds. Joy watches her, silent now. And sometimes, and says, when people see that growth, they don't recognize you anymore. The words linger. And instead of asking why, they decide who you are. Another beat. And stick with it. The studio is completely still. Even Joy doesn't interrupt. Because something in the room has shifted again. Not just tension. Understanding. But understanding doesn't mean agreement. And as Joy slowly leans back in her chair, her expression unreadable. You can feel it. This isn't over. Not yet. Because what comes next isn't just about perception anymore. It's about something deeper. Something neither of them can walk away from. The air in the studio feels heavier now. Like the walls themselves are holding on to every word that's been said, refusing to let anything escape. And Hathaway sits with quiet composure. But it's no longer the polished calm of a press tour. This is something else. Something earned in real time. Something shaped by every question, every implication, every moment she chose not to back down. Across from her, Joy Behar is no longer just steering the conversation. She's inside it now. And there's no easy way out. A faint rustle moves through the audience, but no one dares to speak. Even the usual background energy of the show, the shifting, the whispering, the low hum of movement, has disappeared. All that's left is the tension. Joy leans forward again, slower this time. More deliberate. You know, she says, her voice quieter, but edged with something sharper than before. There's another side to this. And watches her closely. Not defensive. Not reactive. Just ready. Joy continues. You talk about expectations, about how people label you. But you also benefit from those expectations. A ripple of reaction spreads through the audience, confusion, curiosity, unease. And doesn't interrupt. Joy's gaze sharpens. The image. The poise. The control. That's part of what made you successful, isn't it? There it is. The shift. From questioning perception to questioning authenticity. Anne's expression doesn't change immediately, but something in her posture tightens, just slightly. Not anger. Recognition. That image, Joy adds, didn't just happen to you. You built it. A few heads nod in the audience. It's a fair point. A dangerous one, too. And inhales slowly, letting the moment breathe before she responds. You're right, she says. The answer lands softly, but it carries weight. Joy blinks, caught off guard again, and continues, her voice steady, grounded in something deeper now. I did build it. A pause. But not in the way you think. The room leans in visibly, collectively. Joy tilts her head. Then explain it to me. And nods once, as if she's been waiting for that exact invitation. I built resilience, she says. I built discipline. I built boundaries. Her eyes don't leave Joy's. And yes, I built a version of myself that could survive in an industry that doesn't always make space for authenticity. The audience murmurs, this time louder, more divided. Joy crosses her arms again, but there's less certainty in it now. So you're admitting it, she says, that what people see isn't entirely real. Anne's lips press together for a brief second. Then she shakes her head. No, she says quietly. I'm saying what people see is incomplete. That lands harder, because it reframes everything. Joy leans in again, unwilling to let the momentum slip. But isn't that the same thing? She pushes. If people are only seeing part of you, then how can they connect with you? Anne's eyes soften, just slightly. They're not meant to connect with every part of me, she says. A beat. Just like I'm not meant to perform every part of myself for public consumption. The audience reacts instantly, some applause, some thoughtful silence. Joy exhales, a hint of frustration creeping in now. That sounds like a very convenient way to avoid criticism, she says, and tilts her head, considering that. Or, she replies gently, it's a way of protecting something that doesn't belong to the public. The words settle differently, not confrontational, not defensive, but firm in a way that doesn't invite easy dismissal. Joy studies her, searching for cracks, something to push against, something to unravel. And what is that? She asks, and doesn't hesitate this time. My humanity. The answer is simple, unembellished. And somehow, that makes it hit even harder. The audience goes quiet again. Because this isn't just about celebrity anymore. It's about something everyone in that room understands, even if they don't say it out loud. Joy's expression shifts, just a flicker, but it's there. Something softer, something more careful. But she doesn't back down. Not yet. You keep bringing it back to something bigger, Joy says. To women, to expectations, to society. She leans forward again. But this started with you. And nods. And it's still about me, she says. A pause. But I'm not the only one listening. That lands. You can feel it ripple outward, beyond the stage, beyond the cameras, into every unseen viewer watching from home. Joy glances briefly toward the audience, then back at Anne. And what exactly do you think they're hearing? She asks. And takes a breath. And for the first time since this began, her voice carries something close to emotion that isn't fully contained. I think they're hearing that it's okay to be misunderstood, she says. A murmur runs through the room. That it's okay to outgrow the version of yourself people are comfortable with. Another ripple. And that you don't have to explain your entire existence just to be accepted. This time, the applause comes faster. Stronger. Not everyone, but enough to shift the energy again. Joy watches it happen, her expression unreadable. Then she does something unexpected. She doesn't interrupt. She doesn't challenge. She waits. And when the applause fades, she speaks again, but her tone has changed. Less sharp, more precise. Let me ask you this, she says. And nods. Joy's eyes lock onto hers again, but this time there's no smirk, no edge, just intensity. Do you think you've ever contributed to that misunderstanding? The question lands differently than the others. Not as an attack, but as something closer to a challenge, or maybe even an invitation. And doesn't answer right away. Her gaze drifts for a split second. Just enough to suggest she's not reaching for a rehearsed response. She's thinking, really thinking. And when she speaks, her voice is quieter than it's been this entire time. Yes, the word echoes. Because it's honest, unfiltered, and impossible to twist. Joy's eyebrows lift slightly, and continues, her tone steady, but undeniably more vulnerable now. There were times I thought if I just did everything right, said everything right, people would understand me. She lets out a small, almost self-aware breath. But that's not how it works. The audience listens closely, completely still again. Sometimes, and says, trying too hard to be understood makes you less so. That lands deep. Joy nods slowly, almost involuntarily. And what changed, she asks. Anne's eyes return to hers. I did. A beat. I stopped performing for approval and started showing up for myself. The words hang in the air like something solid, something real. Joy leans back slightly, studying her in silence. And for the first time since this began, she doesn't immediately respond. Because there's nothing easy to push against. Nothing simple to challenge. Only something honest. But honesty doesn't end tension. It transforms it. And just when it feels like the conversation might finally settle, one of the other hosts shifts in her seat, glancing between them, sensing the weight of what's just unfolded. The audience exhales collectively, as if they've been holding their breath for minutes. But Joy isn't done. Not yet. She leans forward one last time, her voice quieter than ever, but carrying a final, piercing question. So where does that leave us now? The room stills again, and looks at her, not with defiance, not with frustration, but with something far more disarming. Clarity. And as she opens her mouth to answer, you can feel it. This is the moment everything either breaks, or finally comes together, and doesn't answer immediately. The question lingers between them. So where does that leave us now? Like the final note of a song that hasn't decided whether it's going to resolve or shatter. The studio is completely still. No movement. No whispers. Just expectation. And Hathaway exhales slowly, her gaze steady on Joy Behar. And for the first time since this began, there's no visible tension in her posture. No resistance. No guarded edges. Just clarity. It leaves us here, she says softly. A pause. In a conversation that matters. The simplicity of the answer catches everyone off guard. Joy's expression flickers, not defensive, not combative, but thoughtful. And continues, her voice calm but grounded in something that feels final, like she's no longer trying to prove anything, only to express it. We don't have to agree, she says. We don't even have to understand each other completely. The audience listens, unmoving. But we do have to be willing to see each other as more than a headline, more than a perception, more than a version that's been repeated enough times to feel true. The words settle over the room like a quiet truth no one wants to interrupt. Joy leans back slightly, her arms no longer crossed. And for a moment, she doesn't speak. That alone feels like a shift. And glances briefly toward the audience, then back to Joy. Because if we don't, she adds, we're not really having a conversation. A beat. We're just reinforcing what we already believe. The silence that follows isn't tense anymore. It's reflective. The kind that makes people sit with what they've just heard instead of rushing to respond. One of the other hosts shifts slightly, as if considering stepping in, but doesn't. Because this moment belongs to them now. Joy inhales slowly, her fingers resting still on the table. When she finally speaks, her voice is quieter than it's been this entire time. Well, she says, I'll give you this. A faint pause. You don't shy away from it. A small ripple of laughter moves through the audience, not loud, not mocking. Just human. Anne's lips curve into a soft, almost relieved smile. No, she says gently. I don't. Joy nods once, looking down for just a second before meeting Anne's eyes again. And maybe, she adds, that's part of what people are reacting to. And tilts her head slightly. Maybe, she agrees. But there's no edge in it now. No pushback. Just acknowledgement. And somehow, that's more powerful than everything that came before. The audience begins to clap, slowly at first. Then stronger. Not explosive. Not overwhelming. But steady. Respectful. Earned. And sits back, the intensity in her expression softening at last. Not disappearing, but settling into something quieter, something more grounded. Joy doesn't interrupt the applause this time. She lets it happen. And when it fades, she glances toward the other hosts, then back at Anne. Well, she says with a small, almost wry smile, this turned into more than your usual interview. A few laughs ripple through the room. And lets out a soft breath, a hint of warmth returning to her voice. Those are usually the ones worth having, she replies. The tension breaks, just enough. But the impact of what just happened lingers. And it doesn't stay contained in that studio. Because within minutes, before the segment even fully wraps, clips begin to spread. Phones light up. Producers exchange quick, urgent glances backstage. The control room buzzes with energy. Did you catch that? Someone whispers. Run that clip again. What just happened? And out in the world, the reaction ignites. Social media erupts. Some praise Anne Hathaway, calling her composed, articulate, unapologetically real. Clips of her responses are shared with captions about strength, about owning your voice, about refusing to be reduced. Others defend Joy Behar, arguing that she asked the questions many people were already thinking, that she pushed where others wouldn't, that she did her job. Debates unfold in real time. Comment sections fill. Hot takes collide. News outlets pick it up, unexpected tension on The View. And Hathaway pushes back in live interview moment, a conversation that divided the room. But beyond the headlines, something deeper resonates. Because it wasn't just about a disagreement. It was about how quickly people define each other, how easily narratives stick, and how rare it is to see someone step into that narrative and calmly, deliberately challenge it. Back in the studio, the segment wraps. Smiles return. Thank yous are exchanged. The cameras begin to pull back. But the energy hasn't fully reset. Not really. As Anne stands, adjusting her posture, she shares a brief glance with Joy. It's subtle, but it's different from before. Not confrontational. Not tense. Just aware. As if both of them understand that something real happened there. Something unscripted, something unplanned, something that mattered. And then in turns, waving to the audience one last time as she exits the stage. The applause follows her. This time louder. Stronger. Because now, they're not just applauding a performance. They're responding to a moment. A moment that didn't go the way anyone expected. A moment that refused to stay safe. A moment that asked more, and gave more, than anyone was prepared for. And somewhere, watching from a screen, someone pauses the clip, rewinds it, listens again. Because something about it feels worth holding on to. And now it's your turn. What do you think really happened in that moment? Was Anne Hathaway simply defending herself? Or was she challenging something much bigger? And was Joy Behar asking the hard questions that needed to be asked, or pushing too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective. And if you want more intense, unfiltered moments like this, where conversations take unexpected turns and nothing stays scripted, make sure you subscribe to Stage View, hit that like button, and stay tuned. Because the next story might be even bigger.